You're good to go. Bhuvnesh will be starting. I think we are live.
Yes, ma'am, you are live. I'll just share the link.
Okay. Share the link and please let me know. We'll start. So we'll start. Bhuvnesh, we can start. We have the link.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. A hearty good morning to everyone. I, Shivangi Sinha, Assistant Professor, Bharatiya Vidyapeeth, deemed to be University, New Law College, Pune, and Faculty Coordinator of Madhyasita, the ADR cell, welcome you all in today's session. It gives me immense pleasure to extend you all a warm welcome on behalf of the entire college and our cell. We are truly grateful to all the attendees and the speakers who are present today for the panel discussion and to celebrate International Women's Day. To begin with, allow me to make you familiar with Madhyasita, the ADR cell. The cell is a student initiative by Bharatiya Vidyapeeth, deemed to be University, New Law College, Pune. The cell was introduced on 1st of August 2019 and since then has been working efficiently in training and developing the skill sets of the student in the field of ADR, that is arbitration, mediation, negotiation, and conciliation, by conducting various seminars, webinars, panel discussions, and intra-college competitions, and at the same time spreading awareness about the ADR practices within the student community and giving information regarding various national and international competitions. The cell focuses on organizing more such events in future. The cell has been also launched a special edition of journal on alternative dispute resolution in order to promote the research in the field of ADR. The cell has also launched its one-of-a-kind of virtual venture entitled Global Initiative for Alternative Dispute Resolution Awareness, that is GIDRA, and Oracle for ADR. Through this venture, Madhyasita aims at creating a single platform that brings together ADR professionals across the globe to impart the knowledge of ADR and make it a more prevalent practice. International Women's Day mark a day to celebrate and honor tremendous efforts and achievements of women in various fields. This is also a day which calls for a greater focus to gender equality, promoting diversity, and creating an environment of equal opportunity for all. Being arbitration practitioners, you all must be aware of the recent issue of inclusivity of women in the field of having an equal say in comparison to their counterparts. Madhyasita, the ADR cell, on the occasion of Women's Day, would like to bring women in arbitration to the center light and discuss on this ranging issue. We are looking forward to an illuminating and thought-provoking discussion today, and it would be an honor to listen to some of the leading women professionals in the field of ADR. On this note, I would like our principal in charge of Bharatiya Vidyapeeth, deemed to be University, New Law College, Pune, Dr. Bhagyashree Deshpande, ma'am, to address the gathering. Ma'am, please. Ma'am, Aditya sir, there's mute.
Right.
Yes.
Good morning, one and all. Bharati Vidyapeeth, deemed to be university, was established by Honorable Dr. Patanrao Kadam, a great visionary. University is unique and outstanding, and it has got many constituent units which are flourishing under the able guidance of our beloved Chancellor, Honorable Dr. Shivaji Rao Kadam, who is also known for his research and innovative skills. Our Secretary and Pro Vice Chancellor, Dr. Vishwajit Kadam, who is also a very able administrator and is continually in support of us, and he always gives a push to our new ideas. The Bharati Vidyapeeth New Law College is a very unique and one of the top 10 law colleges in India. Shivangi ma'am has spoken about the Madhyasita cell, but I would like to speak about the other cells. We also have an environment cell, which is doing profoundly well. The focus of the environment cell is not just to bring about the issues of pollution and protection of environment, but to understand the reason as to why the people are not obeying the laws which help in protecting the environment. So our students are trying to help the citizens and the people to protect the environment laws so that the environment is protected, because the state has taken so much efforts. In addition to this, they are doing some research in environment. They had been to the Tadoba sanctuary to understand the issues regarding the man and animal conflict. A wonderful report has been prepared. They have conducted another very good program, that is Ek Kadam Badhao, Aao, Nale Ko Nadi Banao. Pune, we know that we have got a very good river, but now it is, we cannot call it a river because the water supply is so less and there is a lot of water pollution. So our students are taking great effort to rejuvenate our Mula and Mutha river. Uh, Among the various of the cells, we have one unique cell, that is the Artificial Intelligence Center. This year, the college has started this center in order to understand the intricate issues regarding artificial intelligence and the role of law. The center has conducted a very unique workshop just 2 months ago, and the response was profound. We also have a research center wherein we not only teach the students the research on the principles of research methodology, but we also give them the understanding as to the practical application of the principles of research methodology. We have our most unique cell, that is the legal aid cell, which has won many awards for the outstanding legal aid center and the work which they have done. The center does not only give aid to the matrimonial disputes, but also to the other aspects, like, for example, aid in the cyber crimes, cyber offenses, the other many other issues, all the social and the legal issues. The center is offering a great help. Today is the Women's Day, and this panel discussion is with this focus that it should help our young women to take or embark in the new ventures and in new fields so that they can really forward their careers. Gender doesn't matter, but talent and hard work matters. So, irrespective of the fact that a particular person, the individual, is a woman or man, should not make any difference, but his talent, his potential, or hard work matters. And so, I think this panel discussion is going to help everyone to understand the intricate complexities which are involved in the arbitration center. And so I thank all of you, and Shivangi, please take over and continue for a very wonderful discussion.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for addressing the gathering. Moving ahead, I now request Sanya, the student representative of this event, to kindly introduce our speakers of the event and also introduce everyone with the structure of today's event. Sanya, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning to one and all. I, Sana Gandotra, the student of Bharati Vidyapeeth deemed to be University, New Law College, Pune, and the student member of Madhyasata, the ADR cell of the college, would like to extend a very warm welcome to each one of you. Before I introduce you all to the speakers for today's event, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you for being part of today's event. Now, with great honor, I would like to introduce you all to our esteemed panel. First, we have Ms. Kanchan Gupta, ma'am. Ma'am is the co-founder of Center for Appropriate Dispute Resolution, CADO, which is India's foremost online arbitration platform. The CADO has simplified arbitration rules, made the process faster, secure, and fully online. CADO works with a cohort of arbitrators trained on the CADO rules and the platform. Ma'am has over 14 years of extensive experience in mainstream IT, entrepreneurship, and in-house IT. Next, we have Ms. Shweta Biduri, ma'am. Ma'am is the head of South Asia at Singapore International Arbitration Center. Ma'am is an advocate, and prior to joining Singapore International Arbitration Center, she worked in the dispute resolution practice of a leading law firm in New Delhi for nearly a decade on commercial litigation cases as well as investment treaty arbitrations. Ma'am has worked on many leading cases which have contributed to the development of law affecting global companies. Next, on the panel, we have Ms. Namita Shah, ma'am. Ma'am is a chartered accountant and alumnus of Government Law College, Mumbai. Ma'am is also a certified public accountant from US. Namita ma'am co-founded Mumbai-based Resolve 360, an online alternative to traditional dispute resolution systems. And she has previously worked with one of the big fours, Ernst & Young, in their audit and assurance department. She has worked on several matters involving commercial disputes pertaining to diamond industry. Next, we have Ms. Varuna Bhanrale ma'am. Ma'am is a counsel at Trilegal and is part of the Dispute Resolution Practice Group. Ma'am regularly advises clients on corporate, commercial, contractual, and insolvency disputes. She represents clients from various high courts and tribunals and in ad hoc and institutional arbitrations. Ma'am has expertise in devising strategy in complex cross-border and domestic disputes and implementing it through a blend of pre-litigation, pre-arbitration actions and representations before courts and arbitral tribunals. Next, we have Ms. Neeti Sachdeva ma'am. Ma'am is a Secretary General and Registrar at Mumbai Center for International Arbitration. She has worked extensively in the field of international commercial arbitration and has past professional experience of working with top Indian law firms like Trilegal and Economic Laws Practice. She has also worked at the International Arbitration Department of Freshfields Paris office, besides being Judicial Clerk at Delhi High Court. Ma'am is the Asia Pacific and Australia representative of YIAG, LCIA, and member of the steering committee of the Young ICCA Asia Pacific Desk. Now, the moderator for today's session is Mr. Jonathan Rodrigues. Sir is one of the most recognizable faces in mediation and a mediator at a leading mediation firm. Sir is a lawyer and mediator leading the online mediation and corporate relation verticals at CAMP, Center for Advanced Mediation Practice in Bangalore, India. Sir is also engaged as guest faculty at MNLU Mumbai at its newly launched postgraduate course in mediation and conflict resolution. Sir is trained and accredited as mediator by the Indian Institute of Arbitration and Mediation, Cochin. He is also a certified civil and commercial mediator with the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, affiliated to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. I once again welcome you all. Now I will just briefly explain the format that we will be following today. The moderator will start the session by introducing the theme of the panel discussion, which will be followed by the discussion forum, wherein the moderator will direct the questions to the panelist. After that, we'll have an open Q&A segment. Now I request Jonathan, sir, to kindly initiate with the session. So please.
Thank you, Sania. Thank you for those, on behalf of all the panelists, thank you for those very generous introductions. And you spoke so clearly and crisply. I hope I can do that over the next 60 minutes, but thanks for setting the bar really, really high. Once again, welcome to everyone else to this panel discussion on Women's Day. I suspect that some of you might be wondering and find it mildly inappropriate to have a man moderate a session with 5 exceptional women on a panel celebrating Women's Day. However, the organizers insisted that this was a good idea, despite my initial hesitation. But now I'm very excited and I'm here to participate in what hopes to be an intriguing and hopefully an inspiring chat. Okay. All my co-workers back here at camp are all women. Therefore, they say I'm the best man for the job today. So I intend following the same approach, okay? Just keep it really transparent, really sincere, and very edgy. That's how I like it. So we're going to focus on the truth with respect, of course, and with gratitude to everyone else whose voices we represent today. And what I say today are born out of my experiences and my perspectives. And I believe that my co-panelist will agree with me to say that as a disclaimer that we in no way intend to sound like we represent the entire legal community or society at large. We consider speaking on this platform a huge privilege, but our views are personal. All right. So having said that, I want to jump straight because my mom said I should not be speaking too much today. It's Women's Day. So I'm going to jump straight to the gun and get the pot stirring. When I think of gender equality, I think of an important role that men play in making it a fair world. So in a more general sense, especially with regards to the equal rights movement, the question to the panelists today is, do you feel like the messaging and the behaviors of those who propose or advocate for the equal rights movement, do you think that their messaging has kind of alienated the male gender? Even further, that has now encouraged them to kind of come out with new bursts of violence and discrimination? Or do you think this misogyny is too deeply rooted in our country that and not only in our country but beyond our country, that it's an incurable infection? I know I'm using some really strong words here. And do you think it's something that's really incurable, that no matter what kind of messaging is put out there, it's going to be difficult to kind of change the status quo? And I'm going to I'm going to invite Kanchan to go first on this and tell me how she feels about this. Yes, go ahead, Kanchan.
Thank you, Jonathan, and a very warm welcome and good morning to everyone. Thank you, Madhyasthata team and New Law College Pune for holding this, very pertinent and important discussion today. And to answer your question, Jonathan, the fact that you're moderating this session is part of the answer. That we're very thankful for once amongst all the Women's Day events that I've been part of. It's one of the rare events we actually have a man. That brings straight to the question of, yes, is the messaging skewed? Absolutely skewed. When it comes to talking about equality, diversity, inclusion, gender balance, it's mostly women doing the talking about it. Right? So we need more men talking about it than women, really. We all know. And the other perspective I'd like to share here is that, from where women were, let's say, 50 to 100 years ago, when the right to vote happened for women, from then to now, the scale that the women have traversed in terms of, contributing to the economy, contributing to, the general industry has been tremendous. However, have the question to ask is, have the men traversed an equal distance from the other extreme that they were to kind of come somewhere to the middle? And I think that surely has a room for improvement. Yes, there is progress, but there is surely a lot of improvement. A lot of areas are still considered a so-called women's department, really. The other thing is that, when you talk about issues like this, it's mostly spoken about in corporates in urban India. Considering a majority of population in India is lower middle class and also, below that, how many of those men or women are really talking that today is Women's Day and, let's do this for our women? My guess would be pretty much none. Right, so therefore this issue requires addressing all stratas of society and not just the urban corporate. We are people already who are aware. The men in our circles are more or less aware, right? So where is it that the awareness missing? And that's what needs to be kind of addressed. And where we are today in terms of the term you used is misogyny. It is a function of a lot of things, right? It is a function of society, it is a function of conditioning, it is a function of it's a controversial term, but political situations, a whole lot of things. I have a 12-year-old daughter who comes and talks to me about the Hatras case and says, Mama, how can that even happen, that somebody's done all this and just goes scot-free? And honestly, I don't have an answer to that question. Nevertheless, I would like to still be optimistic and say that it is curable, but it requires to be looked at grassroots level. The other example that I kind of add and leave others to kind of ponder over it is, when you're going to schools, colleges, we start talking about gender equality only at workplaces. In an engineering college, out of 100 students in a class, there are 20 girls. Right? So that's where we need to start getting the balance in, and not once. If you do not have women studying equally and getting to that spot, how do you even expect to build a balance at that spot, right? So therefore, and equal for all professions. On the other extreme, if you're talking about teaching, most of them in schools are women. So there has to be an equality across not just gender but across professions as well. And these are a few thoughts that I would kind of leave and add more later. Talking about conditioning, so the whole violence against women, I think our masses, at least in India, are highly driven by Bollywood and what content Bollywood is, laying out to us. And they have a big role to play on how we do this. That's where we need a lot of change. We have to, as women, if we have to really objectify men, we are left with one John Abraham and Dostana. And you guys, it's unlimited, and it's not just fair.
Yeah, I like what you say there about meeting you halfway in this. And also I like the point that you make about, we tend to be preaching to the converted most of the times, and we need to take it out to the larger masses. Those are very interesting points there, Kanchan. I'm going to now invite Neeti to go next and share with us what's on her mind.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And I should take this opportunity first to wish all the women a happy Women's Day, and to the men as well who support the whole momentum of calling it a Women's Day. Diving straight to your question, Jonathan, I think the messaging somewhere has lost its touch. It's become more of a debate of a man versus women. It was never supposed to be so. It's supposed to be building a cohesive environment where talented people, irrespective of what their gender is, are given an equal opportunity to do what they should be doing, to shine, right? Kanchan just pointed out that there are certain professions which we just relate to gender. If it's to be a chef, I mean, look at it in our homes, it would be taken that, oh, it's a women's job to be taking care of the kitchen. You go to the hotel industry, it's the men who are the best chef, right? But you talk to any growing child, and if it's a boy, they would never want to be a chef because that's considered to be a women's job. You similarly talk about a teacher, we would have 90% of women being a teacher. And similarly, you have other professions which are just taken to be that these are the professions which have to go to a man or to women. I think that's where the messaging has gone wrong. Of course, society plays a major role, and you definitely talked about it, and Kanchan said we are converting the one converted already. But what can be done? I think schools play a major role, and they are doing it. It's at the grassroots level that the messaging needs to get right. It's about the talent, and it's not about what the gender is all about. I got up in the morning today reading what Sadhguru had to say about it. And he said that feminism is not a gender. It's actually a dimension. And I think that is what we need to keep in mind, to give an equal level playing field to whatever background you may be coming from, and to do it. I mean, of course, I have a few very strong thoughts on what women can do and what we can do and improve about it. But I think that's for later discussion on that. So I will probably just leave it on this and say that let's not make it a fight between man and women. Let's make it a cohesive environment. That's what the messaging should be.
Thank you, Neeti. That was really a strong message out there. And especially, you speak about labeling different professions as a men's job and a women's job. I wonder where law falls and profession of law. Is it a men's job or a woman's job? That would be an interesting debate to have someday. But I'm going to invite Shweta to come in now and let her share her thoughts, her initial thoughts with us.
Thank you, Jonathan. So once again, happy International Women's Day to everyone who's watching it, everyone who's on the panel, Dr. Deshpande, Shivangi, and thank you to the college for inviting all of us together. So today in the morning, I was discussing with my husband that I have a session, later, and what are your views on it? And of course, one of the questions that Jonathan had, of course, put out was what is really, men's role in this whole scenario of, empowering women, getting more equality, including them together. And, so one thing that he said to me, and it was so important, said that it's so important for us to come and discuss this, to denormalize what had sort of become normal. It's normal to say that there are not enough women, or women need to do this, or to categorize women in a certain way. So it's important that we're discussing this together, and this will become an important starting point for a lot of students who are watching this today, for them to think that it's, you can't question that we can't be a part of something. When they will go on to become judges and lawyers, for them to never think that we can't be, we can't continue our profession when we get married, when we have kids. So just, my initial thoughts on generally bringing this program together, and then circling to Jonathan's question of whether this debate has really become about men versus women. The truth is it has to some extent. What can we do? I think whether or not it is becoming about men versus women, we still need to continue to talk about it. We still need to continue to stir the feathers, right? India is such a large country, and there's such variations in terms of societies, communities, the backgrounds that people come from. So it's difficult to generalize, on a very on an all cross scale, to say whether this is so deep rooted that it's become an infection so difficult to cure. But the truth is there is a problem, and we need to start somewhere, to start addressing it, to make a change and to make a difference. So I think it's really important for us to understand that in our own lives, and to be able to, as a ripple effect, to take it from one person to the next, wherever we are. So in my own family, in the workplace that I'm a part of, what is it that I carry in terms of the mindset? So I think we do need to take men along. You can't have this revolution sort of, that we are all working towards, to have women being included, to have them equal rights for their merit, without men being a part of it. So for any change to happen, every stakeholder needs to be a part of it. So women can't alone say that we have this agenda, that we're carrying the plaque and we want to take it forward. We need to take everyone along. And I think it's a good message today to have Jonathan moderate this session, at some level, for Jonathan to also reflect that what is it that he can do, as a man, to ensure there is more inclusiveness, for women. There is no gender bias, at least, wherever he comes from, So these are my initial thoughts. So back to you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Shweta. I'm going to quickly, and thanks for those remarks about, making this an inclusive movement together. I think that's where it gets more strength, to move forward. I'm going to quickly invite Varuna now to share her thoughts about this as we start off.
Thank you, Jonathan, and so delighted to be part of this panel. Wishing everyone a happy International Women's Day. Now, I'll keep it short because I think Kanchan, Niti, and Shweta have added some immensely useful points, something that we can all, there's food for thought and we can all take back with us today. But I was thinking of it from the perspective of, see, this gender divide, or for that matter, any other kind of divide that you see with respect to race or caste or everything else, is not something that has come up just, say, in the past century or so. It is a social issue which has come about by years and centuries of conditioning. So to expect it to go away all of a sudden is, of course, going to be too much, as much as we all want it, of course, that we want complete parity, no distinguishment between how men are and women are treated, etc. But it's going to take time. So my personal take on this is that, of course, I mean, it goes without saying that we've come a long way, but still the dynamics are skewed, not just to the disadvantage of women, but at times also to the disadvantage of men who do not feel open enough to be able to express themselves and sometimes affirm the rights of women, or be able to stand for things which are stereotypically considered men's. So now, what is it that we are going to do to alleviate the conditions we have? It has to be a grassroots level change, apart from the fact that everyone who is converted converts the others. And I think, like Kanchan had mentioned, it's about converting the converted. But I also do feel that this kind of dialogue of converting the converted is also very important, because a lot of times people are silent. I'll use the term feminism or feminists, but they're silent feminists who agree with you, but do not feel that they have the courage in, say, a boys' club to be able to raise their voice and be like, okay, no, this kind of dialogue or this kind of objectification is not right, or this is not how you should behave. So I think the dialogue needs to keep moving so that we give enough courage to people around us to be able to talk about it so much that the people who are not converted cannot look away from the topic. So I think that's something that I feel is personally important, that we keep the dialogue going. And of course, I mean, then, just as Ruth Ginsburg had said, that if you're expecting change to come and you want to force it through by judgments or dicta, etc., it's not going to happen. People are going to resist it. So you also have to take a fast and slow sort of an approach to it. You have to cater to all kinds of people who listen to and respond to different kind of catalysts given to them. Some will need a little more time to convert, and the others will probably be on the same page sooner. So back to you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Varuna. Namita, over to you. Let me hear your first thoughts.
Thank you, Jonathan, for your question. Very, very pertinent. I'd answer it this way, Jonathan. Can you imagine that when you wake up, every single group on WhatsApp and all your family and friends are wishing you Happy Men's Day? But does that happen? I don't think so. So when it comes to messaging about Women's Day, we are actually having a day to celebrate 50.8% of the population. I think that itself is skewed messaging. Although I understand we need it so that more and more people are aware that women should be at par, but for me, proper messaging would be probably not having Women's Day, a time where you really don't need a day to celebrate 50% of the population. And that would be the right kind of messaging. For example, today when a woman does something, like, for example, the Bumble CEO who recently took her company public, it became a thing because, oh, the first woman CEO based in an IT background to take her company public. When a man does it, is it like, oh, a man has taken this public? It's not the thing. The effort that she's put in is equal, if not more, but it all boils down to categorizing a person as a woman. That is the skewed messaging that I'd like to bring out, that you don't need to do that. Like, you'd not promote equality by saying, look, I'm trying to treat you as an equal and that's why I'm doing this. That itself is skewed. That itself needs to be changed. Although initiatives like having an International Women's Day and all in spirit may be in the right direction, but the way it is being portrayed, I think there is a lot of work needs to be done by men and women both together. And I do hope that probably a decade later, when we're having this conversation, it's on any random day and there is nothing like a Women's Day, because I do believe that that is something that every day should be that day. We don't have a Men's Day, or at least it's not as popular as the Women's Day. Then is it restricted to having such a panel on one day of the year because it's Women's Day? So we have women to talk about women-centric issues, and these issues, social issues, that should be spoken about every day. And when that happens, I think that would be correct form of messaging to answer your questions and to share my initial thoughts on women.
Thank you, Namita. I think you summarized that up, the fact that everyone's saying that this categorization is not really helping us move forward. And also that we kind of need to normalize the fact that it's okay for a woman to succeed at something or to achieve something. We don't have to make a big deal about it and make it sound like it's abnormal, right? I think that's, and I want to kind of jump on the queue here on what Varuna said. And I know I'm kind of going all across the agenda that we have right now, but I'm jumping to what she said then, about are we able to open up, speak out when we are in a crowd that is not on the same page with us? I mean, we can preach all we like to the converted, but what happens when we are in those uncomfortable moments when, we are dealing with people who we are maybe familiar with, and we just suddenly realize that they have a completely miscued perception on, equal rights or, workplace harassment or whatever it is. So going to this point of, beyond our workplaces, right? Every working woman encounters situations at home and which can be painfully uncomfortable, right? Especially when you are an independent woman, living your life strongly in an urban profession, and then you come back home and you face this kind of very uncomfortable situation that could be your own dad, it could be your own husband or your kid or your brother or an uncle. Uncle's the worst. So all this, and you face with this very uncomfortable situations. And so how do you deal with that? How much of your independence do you bring back home, and you can use that to educate them and sensitize them? And while you do that, how important is it to not antagonize them and somehow push that message through? Have you had experiences like that, and how have you managed to deal with those kind of experiences? I see Niti's eyebrows going up first, so I'm going to go with her.
Thanks, Jonathan. It's a very difficult question. Let me tell you this. It's very easy today for us to sit here and say, what's so difficult? If you don't like something, raise your voice. Probably we can do that because we were given an environment where we had the support of, let's say, our mothers, our fathers, our brothers, sister, society, where we could raise a voice. But let's take what Kanchan said to a rural India, to people below the poverty line, to women who don't have a voice anywhere. It's not that simple, and it is not always about antagonizing. Imagine a situation where you're born and you are typecasted to be doing certain thing. And you won't get a support beyond that. you have to antagonize. You will end up antagonizing people whom you love the most, which is your family. But what do you do? And I think there it becomes very important when I say the messaging has to be right. Of course, men have to support this whole, equality issue, but it is the women who have to support women. I feel that this is where we lack as a society, be it in our profession, be it in our personal lives. We always end up hearing stories where women have difficulty with women. And if women can't support women, then I don't see how we will encourage men to do it. I'll give you a very small example, my personal life experience, right? My parents have been very supportive of what you want to do, what profession you want to choose from. We are 3 siblings, and all of us have gone in different directions completely and doing things that we like. But I still remember when I was getting out of my 12th, which I had sciences and I was to become an engineer. I do not know if it was a good or a bad thing, but clearly I'm enjoying myself to have done the law. And when I chose that I want to become a lawyer, the so-called uncles and aunties in the society, the thing was that to my parents, are you sure what you're making her do? Firstly, she's a woman. Secondly, she's a Punjabi. And thirdly, law, you would never find a guy for her. So and you're talking about people who are educated. These are not people who have not gone to school or don't have a perception. These are the people who see, for people like us growing, getting education, doing foreign education, and to which even before my father could respond, my mother's reply was that I'm going to make her independent enough to take choices in her life, and choices are not going to be based on whether she gets married or not married. That's again her choice. Now, let's face it, Jonathan, how many people can take a stand of that? I would say even in the urban India and the most ultra modern society, as we name them, there are very few who can do that. And I really transport myself 15 years back now. I've been with the profession. If I hadn't gotten that support, and if I really had to stand at that time when you're 18, 19, you're in a very vulnerable situation and an age. And if I didn't have supportive parents, could I have antagonized them? Maybe not. So I think it's very important that when we talk about sensitizing men, we also talk about sensitizing women, that one woman has to lead at least another 5 women to take a stand which they believe in. And once you take that stand, be ready. Revolutions don't happen without there being a downside to it. You have to lose things if you want to stand up for it. That's how probably I would summarize it.
Yeah, I like the fact that you brought out the fact that you face the stereotyping and also the inspiration in the same room, in the same conversation. I think that's where that whole experience gets even more powerful. I'm going to now invite Varuna to go next and maybe share with us what's on her mind and how she feels about this.
Yeah, so I think there are 2 things that I thought that, I could bring on board over here on the topic, which is that, see, one is, and this is something that I figured out once I joined the profession, is that, as soon as people grow up, until you're getting into colleges, of course, everyone goes like, oh yeah, of course, I mean, go, the world is yours and you need to be the next Kalpana Chawla and whatever next. But you join the profession 3 years in, I see a lot of people who seem to be getting pressure to, move places, get married, have issues. I mean, and things which I typically don't see men having to deal with on an everyday basis. And also because I think still in our society with men, the topic is more like, okay, you get married whenever you want to get married. And also the spouse is going to move to wherever the boy is going to be residing at. Typically, of course, things are changing. So, I mean, I think these are things that sort of made me a little uncomfortable, because I was just like, you need to come to office. You need to see how these women are achieving, being like absolute total bosses. And there they go back home and having to deal such issues. Of course, I mean, this is not me generalizing, but this is just to highlight the fact that there are people who are still considering that, okay, all said and done, gotten your degree, gotten a job, had a taste of life. Okay, now enough done. Now you need to settle down. So I think have been privileged enough not to have had these circumstances appear before me. But I've seen a few people who've gone through this, and it undermines, I think, even if you are otherwise confident, either you have to really push back and fight with your family, which is not a very good thing, or, not a very pleasant feeling, or otherwise it sort of, makes you wonder whether you should have aimed so high in the first place. So that's one. And I think the other thing, coming from being a girl in India, just generally, I think the standards set for women and or girls and boys right from the outset, not in terms of, I haven't seen so much in terms of, at least personally, in terms of educational qualifications or, achievements, etc. I've seen, thankfully, women around me being encouraged as much as the boys. But women are just generally like, okay, you need to be a little more demure, come back home by 7 in the evening, etc. Those are things that affect you. I mean, you may not agree with that, but you will, somewhere hold yourself back every once in a while. Is this the right thing? Should I be taking this solo trip? Is this okay? I know people who, sometimes have had inhibitions that, okay, I'm going for a moot. It's a 2 boys, 1 girl team. Should I go? Will they be camped together? What do we do? So, I mean, I think these are things that we face on an everyday basis, and you sort of just have to push yourself back and, undo the conditioning.
Thanks, Varuna. And sometimes this messages that come across by saying, do not go out after 8 or go after 9. And you tend to get into these arguments with the folks who are sending you this message. And they will always tell you it's coming from a good place. It's
oh, yes, the
coming from a place-
hostelers, definitely.
Yeah,
The
it's not
PG
coming from-
aunties in Pune.
Yeah, it's not coming from a place where we are saying that we want to hold you back or we want to curtail your freedom.
Of course.
The argument is always it's coming from a good place because we care, right? So what's your take on that, Kanchan? And I know I'm kind of deviating into a separate question here, but I thought it'd be the right time to do that.
Yeah, and because it's coming from a good place, I'll just continue from where you took off. I know it is coming from a good place, but then why restrictions, right? I mean, we're all born equally free, and I think we should be equally free to do what we want. Why should we have the 8, 9 restrictions if somebody doesn't, even though even if it's coming from a good place? Talking about my own life experiences, I think, as destiny may have it, I was lucky to be born in a family of girls, right? With 3 sisters. So we never really grew up having any comparisons. And I grew up painting the house, doing the plumbing, doing the carpentry. People were surprised that I could change a car tire. And that used to make me irate that, so what if I can do it? What's the big deal about it, right? It is just unscrewing 4 screws and then taking the tire and putting it back in. And that is the annoying part, that the educated, the urban India also responds to you or reacts to you that way. Second of all, I've had the privilege of, and I wouldn't say privilege, I think it's just in the Indian context, been lucky to have married who I did, who has taken over, if more than 50% of the, domestic work, if I may put it that way. And there's never been a time where we've had to say that this is yours, this is mine, because of a gender thing. It's mostly been because you have more time, so you do this, I have lesser time, so I'll do this, which I think makes sense. And that's the path we should all be taking. And as they say, actions speak louder than words. The more we demonstrate this, I have 2 helpers. I earlier had 2 helpers, now I have some helpers. When they see this, and they ask me a question that, Didi, Bhaiya does all this. So I like, so what? Right? So because Bhaiya does this, I'm also doing this. And just imagine the impact because of our actions we are able to have on someone. If they were to go and speak to 10 people ahead, right? And I think you consistently keep demonstrating this, consistently keep giving this message, irrespective of who it is coming from. And just optimistic that someday we'll get there. And there are no lack of situations where, either we get antagonized, and I think we have to work doubly hard. I have seen that in my career, and especially coming from tech, right? We have to work doubly, triply hard. You are the single woman in a room full of men who have already judged you even before you entered the room. Right? So having made your presence and your talent felt in that room, it does take an additional amount of effort. So yeah, we have to still continue to put that kind of effort. When we take a break to take care of a child and come back, you're pretty much written off. However, if when a man takes a break and comes back, they are lauded. right? Saying that, wow, what a fantastic dad, took time off to take care of the child. But we are just written off, saying that, okay, no, you can't come back to work anymore, and so on and so forth. So all of them really needs to, and we all have to work, much harder than normal to prove all of them wrong. And always have a seat at the table is what I said. One very small tactical example that I'd like to share is that something I learned long ago, and considering that I've worked in a fairly male dominated world, especially as you grow into leadership positions, you realize that it's the balance is more and more skewed. That going 2 minutes early and making sure that you have the prime seat on the conference table, and I'm talking about physically, right? And I think that kind of, these are little things that make a big difference on how we can actually project about equality, and the fact that I need to be taken as seriously as anybody else out here.
Thanks, Kanchan. So what I hear is that we have to keep pushing out those messages slowly and clearly, and not be afraid of antagonizing anyone, even if it's people close to us. But it's easier at home, I guess, because at the end of the day, family is family, and they will eventually try and get things together. If we have an argument for dinner today, tomorrow morning breakfast is still on the table, right? And everyone's still there, and everyone's still going to vouch for each other and back each other up. And I want Shweta to come on this next, but I'm going to slightly deviate now into a more workplace situation. You all are all women who have basically started your careers from scratch, right? Worked up that ladder, right? You would have faced a lot of situations at a workplace. Now, workplace can be a bit more cruel than family sometimes, because here sometimes there is more to lose than taking on someone in the family, right? And we recently heard of the news of the chief of the Tokyo Olympics, who was forced to resign after he made a very sexist remark, saying that more women on the board means they will be speaking too much, right? And that forced him to resign. And now the leader is actually a woman there. Now, being in these leadership positions, how have you tackled this kind of situations where something very bizarre and rawly wrong was said to you at that point of time? And I know you'll represent some really big institutions over here, but without giving any direct examples, maybe you could talk about how you kind of handle those kind of moments, and what do you do today to anticipate those kind of moments and move ahead. Shweta?
Yeah, so it's a very important question, but I was thinking if whether during my career have I ever faced any incident, so specifically directed at gender bias or making me feel that I'm not equally good enough as a man. But fortunately, I've always worked around a lot of women. So even the law firm that I worked at, it was founded by 3 very strong women. The CEO of SIAC is a woman, even at the moment. So I have fortunately not come across any direct incident at me, but having said that, I think within the legal profession, I think there have been some instances around where we've seen that women were probably not treated at par as men, not at the work environment that I was a part of, but generally in the profession. And maybe connecting to your last question of how do you respond to a situation like that, specifically at your workplace, where you have certain limitations of, you can't just go and yell at someone and sort of scream with your point and say that you can't treat me like this and this is unwarranted. So I think the best way to do that would be to really, through your own actions, and to continue to to really lead by an example, and I think that's really the important messaging. So if I have seen something wrong happen around me, sometimes you learn what to do, sometimes you learn what not to do to other people. So when you go on to take positions in your workplace where you're in a position of authority and you are deciding things for other people, to ensure that you never let that sort of gender bias percolate downward, or see it around happening, or when you have a voice, use that voice to ensure there is no bias. I think that's a very important point. Sometimes we may be in a position where we can speak up, sometimes when we can't speak up, but when we can, we should. I think that's really the important messaging. And one more, story that I remember very fondly, growing up was the story of Bangari Mathai. She was, of course, an environmentalist and nothing to do with law in simple terms. But she spoke about a story of a hummingbird, who was trying to put out the fire, and everybody laughed at her, that how is it that one hummingbird will put out this whole jungle fire? And she said, I will just keep doing my bit, and I think at some point, for all of us who are discussing this today, is to do our own bit, and that bit is, of course, in terms of the action that we take, and also inherently within us, to not let this gender bias set in at all, to know that nothing makes me lesser or inferior or not equal to a man. There is nothing that I can't do that a man can do, whether it's in terms of putting number of work hours, whether it's, simply in the legal profession. It's sad that we don't have as many women judges today as men. And if you analyze the data, it's not that there are lesser number of women law students, right? But over the years, the percentage of women keeps reducing, right? After law students, when they enter the profession, they're still like full gung-ho about, wanting to make a change, wanting to do their best and, make a good career out of it. And over a period of time, there's so many who drop out, because of their personal challenges, circumstances, or whatever. But, for us to be able to provide that support and that environment to ensure that we can take them along with us, and to ensure that there are more women, even in the decision-making authority, and we have lesser discussions about, inclusiveness of women, because we've had plenty of them on the dais.
Thanks, Shweta. I'm going to move on to Namita, and I know that, Namita, you work with 2 boys in the office. How do you keep them in check? And I know that they are thorough gentlemen, of course, but you have been to meetings, you have been in conference rooms where you might have faced situations where your voice was curtailed or limited. How do you make it a point to put out that messaging out there without, I would say without, instead of using the word without, I would say, how do you put that message out there and make them join your team, make them join your team in the sense that understand what's going on and keep that in check at all points of time? How do you do that normally?
Yeah, I think this question is very, very relevant. It has happened to me where, because of my gender, I've been not heard, etc. The first time it happened, it came across as a shock. Although, you read about things like these, it's very different when you experience it for the first time. And my biggest lesson that day was to become thick-skinned. To be very, very honest, that is one thing that has helped me till today, which helps me, that when I enter a room and somebody thinks I'm less because of my gender, I don't care. I mean, that's putting it there out simply in the sense that does not affect me mentally, so that my energy is more focused on how I can ensure that my work represents what I'm doing and my work gives me that equal chance. And as you said, that I work with 2 boys, and in fact, I'm very blessed that both of them also always ensure that I'm not put down in any meeting whatsoever. So now when, incidents like these happen, they themselves take a stand that, okay, this is something that Namita is going to handle, this is something that she will decide upon. And that kind of, also ensures that the other person knows that I too am as much of a co-founder of Resolve 360 as both of them are. And I think that's the stand that we need to take at all times. Of course, there are always going to be people who are still going to think of you as less, and they are probably the ones who are missing out on 50% of the amazing population that are women. But I think what's really helped me is that I need to differentiate that, okay, when somebody does not acknowledge my work because of my gender or does not treat me the same way, there's something lacking in them and not me. I think that kind of mentality has helped me. So when I enter a meeting and that happens, it doesn't take me aback as much. I'm more present and more in my senses. And I then look at cues to maneuver around it. And of course, there are some additional points that I have to do, which probably is a little more effort than my male co-founders. Like just a very simple practical tip. When I go for a meeting, I always wear a blazer. They may or may not. Because, these are things that I've learned to use in my tribe, because I know that, okay, the world is like that. And that's beyond my control. What is in my control is what I can do. And even in spite of my best effort, if somebody still feels that way, then I think there is nothing that I can do about it except for hope that one day they see it. But that does not bother me anymore now. It did, very honestly, at one point in time. Now it doesn't. And I do believe that that doesn't make me feel less of my work in any way. But that also means that putting equal hard work as my male counterparts. If they are in office till 12, so am I. I cannot, then rush home just because, oh, I'm a woman, so I need to be back home. So it's equal work, equal contribution, equal decisions. And I think that's how it is. Gender, at least in our organization, of course, there's no role for gender at all. When it comes to external meetings, the three of us together ensure that we can mitigate those issues as much as possible. And then I do take some additional tips, as I shared as well, to ensure that these things are taken care of. And I think I just think that that is the only way to deal with such things. And I do believe that whatever everyone else said, especially that we should ensure that we don't do that to anybody, whether consciously or unconsciously, and that at least in our families, no other woman has to face what we face through. And I think that these incidents that have happened in my experience have further strengthened my resolve. Because if I have to battle even my own gender, you can imagine how consistent I am in battling any problem that comes my way. So I take it in my stride. It's like, kind of like that quote comes to my mind, which is building a house from the bricks that are thrown at me. And I think that's how I look at this issue as well.
I like what you're saying there about also maybe choosing your battles, right? There is so much that you cannot change, and there is so much that you can. And you make those changes step by step, and hopefully that will slowly transpire into something that we're looking forward for, not just our generation, but I always say that this is our generation is like the most we are the ones trying to really make this work. So those who come next, maybe in 20-30 years, will actually get to see the fruit of this. And not just with regards to gender equality, but even our roads, which are horrible right now. I mean, if you travel in the cities right now, I just keep saying to people that our roads are horrible. Hopefully they'll get better in 20 years from now. But I want to quickly make a statement here, and I want a quick reaction, a 30-second reaction because I'm also conscious of time, from all of you, okay? So this is a statement made to me by somebody last year, all right? Women make better mediators than men because they have the temperament to listen and can genuinely demonstrate empathy. Whereas men are more objective and straightforward, and therefore would be better placed as arbitrators. All right, quick comments there.
I want to go first.
Sure.
Running a company which does only arbitrations for the last 2 years, and having a lot of women arbitrators on my panel, and having worked with male arbitrators, I think both are equally good. However, I've found women arbitrators definitely to have that extra diligence and the extra attention to detail that being an arbitrator demands. So there are a lot of little dotting the I's and crossing the T's that I get from women that are, at the risk of sounding biased, I think I see that more with women than with men. That's my 30-second reaction to what you said.
Thanks. Niti?
I can't say that whether women make it better mediators or better arbitrators. I think women just do very well whatever you give it to them. It's very unfair, like I said, to compare man and women. Kanchan is absolutely right. And like Namita said, we take an extra endeavor to prove to ourselves and to prove to the rest of the world that you throw anything to us and we will do it. And that's why we're very conscious and very diligent in what we do. Jonathan, I would just request you, I have something very important to share, but I will leave for everybody to comment on this question, but just give me 1 minute to share that once we're at the end of this particular session.
Sure. All right. Varuna, will you go next?
Yeah, so I think in my experience, having worked with both male, female mediators and arbitrators, I feel like at the end of the day, what you bring to the table is your professionalism. As men or women, we may be slightly predisposed or have certain character patterns or behavioral patterns, which may make us, let's say, some may be more empathetic, some may be more reason-oriented. But at the end of the day, I think everyone who wants to do their job well comes to the table with that mindset that I have to apply my reason, I have to be reasonable where I need to be, and give everyone the kind of outcome that they are looking for. Of course, I mean, given the kind of social conditioning, as we were discussing earlier, Of course, there will be strengths and weaknesses with both counterparts, I think. But to say that one does a better job of one part of the work or than the other, I think is an unfair assessment.
All right, thanks. Yes, Shweta?
Yeah, I think merit cannot be defined by gender. Whether you're a man or a woman will not make you better at anything. But I think a good mix of the two would definitely make for a, if, for example, for an arbitral tribunal you're appointing, a good mix of a male arbitrator and female arbitrator would make for a great arbitral tribunal. So I think that's what would be more fun, rather than just thinking that, women make better leaders or are better at their job than men are.
Okay. Namita?
I'll just talk about what happened when I was coming to office today. I was listening to the radio, and one of the RJs said that 3 things to learn from women. The first thing was empathy. That they have the innate ability to put themselves in other people's shoes before charting outcomes, vis-a-vis men who first chart outcomes and, if at all, then put themselves in the other person's shoes. So I would not differentiate as mediator or arbitrator, but I do believe that women have an innate ability slightly higher than their male counterparts in dispute resolution overall. But that doesn't mean I'm going to take away the credit of all the men who are in the dispute resolution space. Of course, talent, skill, and hard work, I think it works like hard work first and then skill, and everyone can resolve disputes better. I just feel women have an innate ability because of their gender, and these are things that should be used to their advantage. We have so many disadvantages being women. This is one of the advantages that definitely should be explored. And that's why I do feel that women are better suited for dispute resolution overall.
Thank you so much. Here's another very interesting point. I think we've been trying to really, as we say, we are all on the same page with regards to, how we feel about, I would say, equal rights and representation. But what do you think needs to change? Like, what are those action points that really need to come about? What would you like to see? Let's say we're 2021 now. What would you like to see in 2030 India, right? And I'm going to give you like 45 seconds each to go about with this. But for example, let me put some very controversial things out there. Would you like to see maybe finally we having a Chief Justice who's a woman, a panel of Supreme Court justices who where the majority is women, or there's an equal representation of both women and men, institutions and organizations that we're part of, board member committees that are equally represented. What would you like to see happening in your both your professional setup and also society around you? And I think once we're done with this question, there's a very fun question that's left, and I think after that I'm going to give the mic to Niti for some closing comments. But yes, quick comments on this. Let me start with Namita.
In 2030, I would like to see all these headlines that you mentioned without mentioning gender at all. I wouldn't want a debate where it says, oh, a woman is a CJI, women have more representation in this, women are now in board seats, women are making their companies public. No, it doesn't matter. It's an individual, an entrepreneur, or professional doing all of this. And I think true equality means not having to talk about gender at all. To give you an example, do you say that, oh, taller men make better CJIs than shorter men? No, right? It's just like that. There is no debate about equality of men and women at all. And I think that's the kind of headlines that I would want to see.
Right. I hope that doesn't get us into too much trouble. Kanchan? Yeah,
I think there are two things that I'd like to talk about here. One is we still subconsciously, when we are talking or referring to any topic, he comes first, right? Let's say an arbitrator is doing say this and he is supposed to do that, and I think shifting that to one, instead of saying either he or she, that one needs to do this or one has to say this or one should be thinking like this. I think we should all make a very conscious effort in doing that, and that'll set the tone for a lot of things. And the second thing that I want to see is that I really want to second Namita's thoughts over here, that see a time when we don't have a need to have discussions like these and have a special day kind of culled out to talk about these issues. And it's all par for course, where irrespective of strata, gender, or height, weight, race, caste, anything. Everybody has the equal opportunity to do everything and to shine in their own personal way.
Thanks, Kanchan. Shweta?
So I think while it is quite idealistic to hope that by 2030 there is no discrimination, we have equal representation at each forum, I think the struggle would continue at some level. We will have to continue to make these efforts because the problem is so deep-rooted. But from the statistics point of view, if I could share from what SIAC had been doing, and I would hope that in 2030 these numbers are better. So of the arbitrator appointments, 37% last year were women. I hope by 2030 the numbers are far higher, maybe 50%. From the SIAC Court of Arbitration, we have 31% as women. I'm hoping we will have more stronger international arbitration practitioners who are part of court. And of course, with the current our case management, fortunately, we are 70% women, so which is a great number and promising. So hope to continue. So I think with these are tangible numbers where we can identify change happening. So in 2030, I think hopefully we will have stronger numbers and lesser concerns about more inclusiveness and gender bias.
Thanks, Shweta. Varuna?
So from a very dispute resolution / law firm perspective, I feel like in the next 10 years, it would be excellent if we could see equal representation of women where partnerships, for instance, are concerned, or where you see women either being judges or representing matters for their clients in courts. Because I think a lot of times I've seen clients who, not so much personally, but I think there are, from a solution-oriented perspective, there are two things. One is capacity building. Sometimes clients feel, or even lawyers feel, that there aren't enough good women lawyers who can represent their case, or senior enough women lawyers who can represent their case, and therefore the lack of representation. And I think that's very easily achievable by capacity building. So I hope that even if no equality, I don't know if we'll have a 50-50 by 2030, but the effort towards that would be excellent to my mind. And I think if we could strive towards that, that in itself, to my mind, will solve many problems. And the other thing, on a lighter note, is that when we enter meeting rooms, I hope that people don't automatically stretch out their hands to the men first. So that would be nice too. Sometimes, once in a while, that happens. So,
thanks, Varuna. Niti, I'm going to throw this across to you, and I understand that you also had another point to make. But there's a very fun question, and actually two fun questions. And while Niti is making her last point, I want the others to think about. One is, there was a question, and I'm pretty sure this has come out of a personal experience. How do you make sure you get enough arbitration cases and they don't go to only the men? And the second one is, how do you make sure that you're getting paid equally, or in the same salary range as the men in your firm or in your organization? So that's something that I want the rest to think about while Niti makes her point.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And sorry for taking away this time, but I had something really, really important I thought to put across, especially to the students who are, listening to it. I totally agree with Namita on the last question, that hopefully this debate of, again, having equal representation, and it's a women's CGI, that will go away. But let me come to the point of the women, especially students, women students who are there and listening to us. Please, please, please learn to take a stand. Be confident. Deep down, all of us have this, what we call, and women have it especially, is a sixth sense. When you know something is not happening right, stand for it. Don't be scared. And I know it's easier said than done, but how can you do it? And I think in the legal profession, in the dispute side, if only thing I've learned is that if you're well equipped with your knowledge of law, with the facts that you're representing, you will be confident to put your best foot forward. I'll give you a very small example which happened during the lockdown. There was this colleague's younger sister or somebody, and she said that she's working in a topmost law firm in India. And her partner called her one day, a male partner, and said, we have an urgent filing in dispute. I would want you to come to my home at 11 p.m. He's a gentleman, he's a thorough gentleman. I'm sure there was nothing really, outward to it. And she was now perplexed because everybody's working from home. They weren't going to office and they had an urgent filing. And she actually needed to meet the partner to be available at a particular time. But she personally felt that going to somebody's house at 11 p.m. was just uncalled for. And, I had to really tell down that, see, if you're not comfortable with it, take a stand. Say that I'm available on a Zoom call. I'm available to meet you at 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't feel 11 o'clock is a time in the night for me to be coming to somebody's house. If you think it's fine, please go ahead. But do take a stand with what you're comfortable. Do not get into the pressure that if not me, then somebody else will take up the job. Don't feel that if I do something which my conscience doesn't allow me to do, then will I lose my job? I'm telling you, if you are talented enough, if you prepare yourself enough, if you're ready to put in the hard work, you have ample opportunities across. And some of us are really an example here. We've taken a stand. You wouldn't believe, Jonathan, just last 15 seconds, in 2019, when I've been 13 years into the experience, I'm invited to meet an ex-judge. I will not name the person here. And he said, I would want to meet and understand what MCI is doing. I said, I'm very happy to meet wherever you are because he would not want to travel to the center. When I reached the place, he said, could you just come to the room and we have a meeting? Jonathan, I tell you, it was 10 seconds for me to compose myself and say, sorry, no. You better come to the lobby and we'll discuss it in the lobby. I'm not kidding. Those 10 seconds, I was shivering. It wasn't easy to take a stand, even despite having taken stands in my profession for the last 13 years. But where did I get that confidence? I have that confidence because I know that my conscience is not aligned. I think it's not appropriate. So take a stand and say, I am not going to do it. This is what I want you to do. And trust me, you, all the young women there, he actually came down to the lobby. He apologized and said, I'm sorry, I didn't appreciate that where you were coming from. And I will keep that in mind. So it's a message clear and strong to the men out there, right? It's nothing wrong. I don't say that he had any other apprehension or he was having some other thoughts in his mind, but you need to be clear what you want. Be confident, be assertive, and you shall get what you want.
Thanks, Neeti. That was a really strong message for everyone listening in. And not to dilute what you really just said now, because it's quite powerful, but yeah, there are a couple of those interesting questions that I think we should take up because they're coming from the audience. Anyone wants to take a crack at it? How do you make sure you're on the equal pay scale and also making sure that you get enough cases and you're not just being sidelined in an office?
I think I'll take a first crack at it because I think anyone who's working, especially the students, I think there's really nothing from a gender pay gap or gender disparity perspective that you need to be worried about. I think the market and the profession is such that everyone honors and respects merit. So if you are coming with a certain skill set and you're good at your job, there's absolutely nothing that's going to stop you. And in general, also, I feel that gender-based pay parity, I mean, at least I have not come across that. I speak only for myself. I can't say for others, of course. But I think there is some good news, a lot of good news, that these kind of rudimentary discriminations, at least I have not personally come across. And I hope that I'm hopeful that increasingly people are facing lesser of that. In fact, it's been my privilege of working with several seniors who I've worked with, and believe me, everyone's willing to push you up and to let you shine and give you your moment. So it's not really anymore in that sense, at least about gender. If you're good enough, then they won't want to hold you back either, right? Everyone wants to have a good team. So those are my thoughts.
All right. Yes.
So probably I can go next on both questions. The first one is about how do we get more arbitration cases? I think this has got nothing to do with gender. It has just got to be with the fact that please be aware that you have other means of resolving disputes other than thinking of going to a consumer court or a court or anywhere else. There are other easier, faster, effective mechanisms. It is just about building awareness. I don't think getting more cases has got anything to do with gender. And as far as women arbitrators are concerned, at CADA specifically, we have signed the international arbitration pledge, where we pledge that 60% or more of our arbitrators are women. More than half both as co-founders are women. Most of my team is women. So that's my small way of, kind of putting this message across to the rest of the world that, we can equally kill it. And to the second question of pay parity, I agree with Varuna that in the entry levels, for sure, there is absolutely no disparity. Where I have personally experienced disparity is when you are moving jobs from one place to another, or if you're going back after a break, there definitely is a disparity. And I think in today's world, compared to where we were, let's say about 10 years ago, there are enough tools available to do a comparison and, just stand your ground. Right, just stand your ground, saying that, look, I've seen on Glassdoor, speak to people, go ahead, ask 10 different people on what it is, try and connect with employees, and don't be shy to do any of that. Do your homework and then say that, look, this is not fine and this is what I deserve to get. If you like it, fine. If not, walk away, because there's always another door waiting for you to go and knock on. That's to my question. And there's just one thing that I have learned, that I want to pass on to everyone out here, all students, because there'll be some point in time in life where we all get there, and especially as women, we because of our genetic buildup, or our just how we are wired differently, we tend to take on a lot emotionally, right? We tend to take on accountability and responsibility for a whole lot of things. And then at the end of it, because we try to spread ourselves so thin, we start feeling guilty. And that is the biggest lesson that I have learned through my journey of being a working woman, parent, wife, daughter, whatever else, right? That stop feeling guilty. If one of the aspects slips, it's perfectly fine, it's all right. Nobody's Superman or Superwoman out here. So forgive yourself and do not feel guilty for anything. Right? If you think that's the right thing to do, go ahead and do it without any guilt or remorse.
That's an interesting point there, Kanchan. And I think before Namita and Shweta also come in, maybe to this question, how much of this kind of also affects your mental health? And because I think what Kanchan just spoke about, she said, don't feel too bad about yourself if you're kind of finding yourself limited in certain areas, because you have put your hands in so many places and you have so many responsibilities, rather, right? How much of this also affects your mental health, especially as being, working women right now in this field of dispute resolution? If things are really not going your way, how much does that really affect your health?
It does, Jonathan. Needless to say, I think this is equal for men or women. Things not going south will always cause some amount of discomfort. But then one needs to know that, it's a sine wave. You go down, you come up, you go down, you come up. And just move on. Don't hold on to what did not happen, but look ahead and, look at what can be done. And I think that's perhaps the easiest way to look at. There's definitely a lot of stress that builds up, but there are enough, again, mechanisms out there, as well as something that we've kind of learned on how we deal with these situations. But I'll again go back to saying that when you reach that phase of life, when you're dealing with multiple aspects in your life, never ever feel guilty for having missed on either one of the aspects. Everybody else will be fine. Learn to love oneself before everybody else. That's a lesson I've learned, and I found it very useful. And I really want to share this across to as many women who will hear this.
All right, Namita?
Yeah. I think first I have to acknowledge, Kanchan, you spoke beautifully about how you put it out there that first we need to love ourselves and accept ourselves. And Jonathan, to your question about mental health, and very interestingly, I read this research report by Vox on women and men at workplace and their relationship with money. So in that, it was clearly brought out that women are underconfident even when they know things, and men are overconfident even when they don't know things. So, when it comes about how to get more matters or how to get more work or how to get a better job, etc., on all of those lines, I think the first lesson to follow is to first be confident about our own self and our own abilities. Nobody knows everything from day one. We learn along the way. And I think women generally are less confident about that vis-a-vis their male counterparts, which kind of puts them on a back step. So the first thing is to know that yes, you can do it. Yes, you'll figure the way ahead. And I think that confidence will reflect in the work, which will speak much louder than your gender. And I've experienced that personally as well. So I can say that that is one. And secondly, when it comes to equal pay, the thing is that today women relatively vis-a-vis men, again in the same report, said that they are more reluctant to ask for help or to ask for what is rightfully theirs vis-a-vis their male counterparts. So that is something that women need to do for themselves. It's like you will get help provided you seek that help. So it is important to take that first step, like how Kanchan said, talk on Glassdoor. There are so many institutions, NGOs that point out such instances and ensure that those companies now do not differentiate in payment between men and women. So there are so many support systems out there. You need to seek those out and you need to take a stand and say that, okay, this is not okay and this is not going to be okay. And when you actually say something's not going to be okay, chances are it will change in your favor. So that is something that we women ourselves need to do, being confident and asking for what is rightfully ours. So I think these are things that will hopefully help if ever somebody encounters a situation like that.
Shweta?
I think just last few points, of course, from the cliche of, that we have to work on our skills to be able to get, what we deserve. Maybe on practical standpoints, and also for students particularly, is read a lot. I think to build solidly on their knowledge, is something that is going to go a very, very long way. And getting cases is just one part of it, in terms of being successful and being able to establish their career. Stay connected with fellow practitioners wherever possible, because you learn together, you understand, each one's journey, and you sort of learn from that as well. And write on, you could write your research papers. Of course, there's a journal that the cell runs, but on Kluwer arbitration blog, for example. So write consistently more, so that you sort of stay ahead of the curve, and there's some way for you to show that you understand and you have grasp on your subject totally. In terms of arbitrator appointments as well, I think most institutions are very open to having more women on their panel and to also appoint them. So I think don't shy away from approaching the institutions, because a good thing about, all of the talk, there is a arbitration pledge as well, is that everyone is very conscious and open to this. They are trying to do more than, what they're already doing. So yeah, don't don't hold yourself back or feel shy from approaching wherever you need to. So these are some of the things. And to the point on, I think, mental health, I think these are not gender specific. But in addition to working on our work skills, I think there is a dire need, even more so now than ever, is to work on our life skills of how we respond to life. And I think that is something that individually we'll all have to do this inner work constantly. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight. But we really have to be at it. And I think on a longer term, to be able to sustain a successful profession, that has to be very strong, because you may do well, for some years, but it can't be that there would never come a point where you have to, struggle a difficult situation, whether you're a man or a woman. But it's how we respond to it and deal with that situation that will ultimately sort of get us through it. So just my 2 cents on the 2 questions.
Thank you so much, Shweta, and really powerful messages over the last 5 minutes from all our speakers here. And I know that we have dragged this on beyond time, almost hitting our lunch hour right now. And thank you for staying with us. All of you have stayed with us on this call. I would have loved to have all the women speakers have the last word. Unfortunately, I got to have the last word on this one as the moderator. So 3 things that I want to take away from this. One is we got to stop the nonsense of men are from Mars and women are from Venus, and get down to earth and really try and message this equally. Right? I think secondly, we really want to make sure that the headlines that we're putting out there should not have a prefix of a gender. It should be purely based on talent that the particular individual is showcasing out there. Right? And thirdly, I think that all the speakers have really clarified for all of us is that if we have something on our mind and we feel like it's not the right thing, then we need to speak up. And I think that's a very clear message that's going out there. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to now hand it over to Shivangi back at Law College. Thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of all the panelists, once again, happy Women's Day.
Thank you so much, sir. And a special thanks to all the panelists. Indeed, it was a thought-provoking discussion around the corner. And when I say thought-provoking discussion, actually, I really mean it, because there were so many things, there were so many ideas, and there were so many things which we can actually relate. And I think it's going to be a very helpful discussion throughout for everyone. And in order to conclude our session, I now request Krishan Kant, our another student representative of today's session, to kindly render the vote of thanks. Krishan Kant, please.
Now, as we come to the end of this panel discussion on equality and inclusivity in dispute resolution, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record my gratitude to a lot of people. At the outset, I thank all our resource persons and guests for having taken out time from their busy schedule and joining us. I just want to make a special mention of how all our resource persons ensured that everything went up very smoothly without any glitches. So thank you very much. I also wish to place on record my words of gratitude to our most important source of inspiration and guidance, Dr. Bhagyashree Deshpande, in charge principal of New Law College, Pune. Ma'am, it is your vision that continues to guide us in each step that is taken by Madhyasthata, the ADR cell. My next words of gratitude are towards Ms. Shivangi Sinha, Assistant Professor at New Law College, Pune, and Faculty Coordinator of Madhyasthata, the ADR cell, for her continuous support towards making this event a resounding success. I also thank the university management for their unrelenting support and all the other invitees, student attendees, and members of the legal fraternity for having joined us. Last but not the least, I would also like to thank all the student members of NLC Madhyasthata, the ADR cell, for helping us make this event a grand success.
Thank you so much, Krishan Kant. And once again, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jonathan, for moderating it so well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.